Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests bring you insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for soul growth. Come journey with us through astrology's energetic cycles and get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
I'm Sue Minahan, Talk Cosmos host, and this is June 2nd. Happy birthday to all of you in June 2nd land. I happen to have known 4 people for today. A very important day, I guess, for me. But more than that, I have to say it right away. Today is the first time in 200 years that Jupiter and Pluto are conjunct. And I wouldn't have known that exactly except Justin Elsie, who's one of my panelists today, brought it up in our pre-chat. And it is amazing. It's the first time since 1789, when we were working the Constitution after the federal papers. Now, for those history buffs, that's like a wow. And for those that are not, hey, we got to step up, because this is a very important year for the United States of America. Everything is in the cosmos, right? It's happening in lots of directions. So what's really important is that we're talking about the new moon in Gemini, and Gemini collects data. Gemini looks at things to connect. And I will say that in reviewing some of my slides, maybe I connected a little bit too much, and we'll edit those things. But we're moving on. And it's very exciting because you can it is exciting. And I am happy now to introduce, and we are ready for Archetypal Symbols panel.
Synthesizing the new moon consciousness through archetypal Sabian symbols, numerology, lunar mansions, tarot, and astrology, all together illuminating a new moon vision story, this is your Archetypal Symbols panel.
I am Sue Minahan, founder of Talk Cosmos since 2018, an evolutionary astrologer and student of vibrational astrology, a consultant, workshop facilitator, lecture speaker, writer, Dwarf Planet University graduate, charter member of Kepler Astrology Toastmaster Club, hold an AA degree and Associate of Fine Arts Music degree, and Certificate of Fine Arts in Jazz. I'm an artist, musician, mythologist, and pursue esoteric philosophies.
I'm Elizabeth Liz Muschett, a professional astrologer, intuitive, numerologist, and tarot reader. I'm a certified sacred healing counselor, providing nurturing, in-depth consultations for individuals and couples. I'm an author, blogger, speaker, and international Reiki master and teacher. I create safe space in which to explore the deeper patterns of your life, to clarify your current circumstances and help you find your best path forward.
And I'm Justin Elsie, an archetypal Jyotish astrologer, yoga and meditation teacher, and author. I combine both Western ancient astrology and modern psychological astrology with Eastern Vedic astrology, and I specialize in predictive, electional, and karmic astrology for individuals and couples. I also do in-depth astrological research into arcane astrological concepts, focusing on the mystical, occult side of astrology.
Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift." And that's why it's called the present. Hi, Elizabeth Liz Muschett and Justin Elsie. It's great to see you both.
Yeah,
it's good to be back.
Yeah, and I was just looking at my notes. Really, I hope this whole consciousness that's happening is going to bring a bridge of new consciousness and holistic belief patterns to unify. Wouldn't that be great? I think we'll just work and keep moving on.
And you said that Jupiter was conjunct Pluto, but it's trine Pluto. It's 120 degrees away.
Yes, it is trine. In fact, when I did the electional search on solar fire, I did the conjunction in Gemini, and come to find out there were 2 in the past 1600s and whatnot. And I was trying to put pieces together, and then I realized it was a trine with Aquarius. And it's significant because we are with a great grand conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn that happen every 20 years in this air element mode for 200 years in Aquarius. So the fact that Jupiter, that expands everything, is trine, meaning it's a cooperative force for all these changes. But boy, for a Gemini standpoint, and I'm a Gemini, my birthday is going to be on this new moon, as a matter of fact, it's really like transforming not just one butterfly, but a hive of butterflies. And I know that butterflies don't come in hives, but that's how it feels. Okay, enough of that. Thank you very much. It's a trine. A little bit of yak today. You can get a hold of Liz at alightpath.com and Justin at justincrocketelsie.com. His email is justin.elsie@gmail.com, and Liz is liz at alightpath.com, and I'm Cosmos. What are we? Metaphysical, symbolic symbols. We want to envision this new world, this new moon, with intention. Shall we talk about the archetype itself? Liz, you want to head off?
Sure.
Whatever comes to mind.
This new moon's at 16 degrees and 17 minutes of Gemini, and Gemini is an air sign, and its mode is mutable. It's the third sign and the natural ruler of the third house. Justin, you want to go on?
Yeah.
No, I think you've got it covered there. That's pretty much, we've listed some of the, actually you can say the traits of Gemini here and some of the shadow traits as well.
Indeed. And for the podcast, which I'm remembering because we're on radio here and I do see the numbers, there are those folks. Generally, it's communication. Push come to shove. If you were to Google Gemini again and again, one word that comes up is communication. And what is that? It's not just from me to thou or me to thee, but it's me to my computer. Oh, I love you, computer. Yes. Or myself. Ain't so bad itself, right? Okay, so that's the idea. And it can be impulsive, and there are focus issues because you can get in various ways as you're curious about things and speaking and writing and whatnot. Numerology, 16 degrees adds up to 7. So we're going to do both. 7 generally is a spiritual number. And with that case, we need to be introspective. It's where you look inside.
It's an intuitive number and the number of the philosopher.
Yes, go
about
ahead.
Higher truth and wisdom. And then the number 1 is creation, independent, beginning, opportunity. And the 6 is family, marriage, divorce, birth, christenings, healing and protecting others, responsibility.
So I think just in a nutshell, rather than the facts, it's like meaningfulness. I'm always driven. That's my intent. So 7 essentially is the ultimate. You could say, I know that in numerology, there's tons of ways to go through meaningfulness, but on our snapshot here, 7 is the name of the game, but the support system is 1 and 6. So it is creativity, and it does have to do with all your connections with families, death, and your responsibility to yourself. Would you say that? Or what's your meaningfulness that you would?
Well, I would say oftentimes if a person's going through a 7 year, that they might take a sabbatical that year. They might take some time out from their normal hectic schedule.
Thank you, Liz Muschett. Elizabeth.
Yeah, it's a year of introspection typically, where people go and learn introspection. And it tends to also be serious. The 7 tends to be a little bit more serious, but 16 is a combination, is a serious number because it's somewhat about a responsibility to the individual, 6 to the 1. And typically, a lot of times people who are born on the 16th or have 16 in their numerology will end up being caregivers. There's a thing about responsibility and health towards the individual. But it's the number out of time, as Aleister Crowley said. It's the 7 is the mystic. So it tends to be serious and introspective.
It takes time, yes, to really contemplate that soul. It's excellent. Thank you both very much. And I'm thinking my birthday is 6/6, so it is fascinating. I love numbers, and there's many learning. And I hope you as your audience, look at all this too and connect. 6 is the trump card, the Lovers, the sign of Gemini, and it's many things. The twins are two paths, you could say. But Liz, go ahead. You do well here. I love it.
And it can be like you're at a crossroads. Which way do I go, left or right or straight ahead, or just stay where I'm at? It's about relationships and choices, love, harmony, and romance. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, it's about connections with others and attraction and unity between two people, and has relationship to twins, or basically a relationship.
Thank you. And there's a minor arcana with tarot, and this is for Gemini, as we have been doing, thanks to input here, for the various months. So we're continuing with Gemini. Swords are represented by air. Now, there is some differences, of course, but generally speaking, swords are air. So we're doing number 5, 6, and 7, which happen to be Jupiter, Mars, and the Sun. The 5 of Swords is Jupiter in Gemini, the Lord of shortened force. And I'll have Liz comment on these, but I'm just reading them off for our podcasting people. 6 Swords is Mars in Gemini, Lord of despair and cruelty. And remember, these are extreme, but yet they come to a point, like all melodrama, and there's behind the scenes meaning. 7 Swords, Sun in Gemini is the Lord of ruin, liberation. So, Liz, any comments on this?
Well, and it's interesting. Jupiter and the Sun are in Gemini at this point, and Mars will be there before too long. So that's going on. But it's like, everything moves along, and, there's like work to do, I think, with the swords. What about you, Justin?
Yeah, just to let people know that these actually come from the Golden Dawn. And and so this is the occultists, and this is where they came up as the overarching concept of these particular cards, with the planet associated with it in that sign.
So how would you, what's the meaningfulness, folks? Lord of shortened force, Lord of despair and cruelty, Lord of ruin and liberation. What do you take out of all that? What's that? Little idea.
Well, working on whatever issues you need to work on, and to release them and let them go.
And really, because Gemini is an air sign, we're dealing with swords here, which are air. It's moving, and it's how we move forward that it's positive, and it's not, our speech, Mars and Gemini, is not cruel. And that our, and that we move forward in life, it's in a very positive way, and doesn't bring ruin or cruelty to others.
Thank you for that. It's a reminder of kind of what we're working towards I love that. Thank you so much. Justin, the lunar mansions.
Yeah, the nakshatras. So the lunar mansions are basically how we break down each zodiac sign into sections, or padas, from the Jyotish or Eastern Hindu way. And there is the concept of lunar mansion in tropical astrology as well. So each of this focuses on the fixed stars in the constellations, the zodiac constellations, and each of them has a mythology to it, and how do you want to say, a planetary association and a deity. And so that's what nakshatras are. And so for this particular one, in the Jyotish, the moon is in the nakshatra Rohini and in the 4th pada. And so this particular meaning for this moon is around creative expression and emotional connection with others. And of course, this kind of aligns with the Gemini, which is about relationship. We're going to see this later on in the Sabian symbols. This ruling planet is the moon. That's where the emotions come in. And the ruling deity is Brahma, which, was one of the 3 godhead in Hinduism. And he is the creator. The symbol is the chariot. So again, here we have the movement of air and force. And as we say in the spiritual concept, as above, so below. The basis above is plants, and the below is water. So again, it goes back to creating here. And this relationship there's a relationship between plants and water and elements here. So it's about something that helps something create through a relationship. So that's something really kind of important to think about, creating through a relationship, being creative through a relationship with this moon, as we're going to see in the Sabian symbols.
The nakshatra that we bring up each time, for me, really illuminates other sides of the whole picture that I'm finding so powerful.
It gives us depth. You're right.
It does. And when you speak of water and air, I was shocked many moons in other researches for programs to realize just scientifically the symbiotic relationship that water and air are in constant relationship, that it is a matter of how much air can hold water until it falls. And if there isn't enough water in air, it evaporates. Even ice is evaporating, but I just hadn't thought of that. I was thinking of ice as so solid, but no, of course, everything is changing, but it's a constant dynamic. So, yeah. Here, we will remember relationships and creation.
Yeah. Creative expression through emotional connection with relationships, meaning that this is showing us that we can be that creative expression is important in relationships.
It is. I love that. It's like the epiphany of it. And sometimes it steers you in the right direction immediately. And other times it's like, what happened? And that's where you look at maybe shadows of whatever it might be, or information you didn't know, but it moves. I just love it. The Gemini twins, that's really what it is about. The mythology is with these two twins. They were brothers, identical, but they had different fathers. Zeus, the king of gods and of the heavens, is a shapeshifter and would populate different energies, you might say, through different forms. And in this case was a swan and impregnated a queen of Sparta. Now in Greece, Sparta was the antithesis, you might say, of Athens. It was very metaphysically oriented, or at least philosophically, of all the sages, the 7 sages, however many you want to think of. But I was just reading about there were 7 great sages in Greece. And yet they were militaristic. They were Spartan warriors. So she was the queen of that, which is important when you consider, because these two had battles, and the mortal one, because one had an immortal father, one the mortal. She was impregnated by both, and the mortal one died. Well, the immortal one, Pollux, was bereft. They were devastated. There was no consoling, and went to Zeus, said, we have to be together. And Zeus complied. He put them as the constellation fixed stars, Gemini and Castor. And there's many ways, of course, with stories as it goes, but essentially they share their times, whether sometimes below, as mortals do, whether it's the underground or it's in matter, and sometimes in the spiritual world or the celestial realms, because essentially Gemini wants to connect spirit and matter. It is that relationship, and it is that relationship with another that they recognize is similar or as close as possible, but still separate, not them, but yet one that they can communicate with. It's what they cherish. So it is that duality. And again, with the tarot, it all signifies it. It's the lovers. It's that communication, unity, and connection. And with this chakra, emotional connection that Justin's talking about, both Liz and Justin. Here, I happen to have in my blog this wonderful slide from Earth Sky. And it shows in this illustration that Gemini does, essentially, it can go from above the horizon to below, or half above and half below. And it will be coming the brightest. Well, it will be apparent. It will be disappearing from the summer sky after the summer. Okay, going on, we're going to Sabian symbols. A metaphysical wonder that people are still working on increasingly. I'm just amazed how many astrologers are bringing up Sabian symbols of late when I start reading and connecting. But they are spiritual images for every degree. And we're doing a story of them. The past, the present, which is the degree, the Sabian, the next, there's some differences there, and the future following. So there's going to be 4. Liz, do you want to start off with?
Yeah, we're going to look at the Sabian symbol for the ascendant, which is 24 Cancer. And then the midheaven is 8 degrees Aries. And the sun and moon are at 16 degrees Gemini, Mercury.
Yep. And it shows here as far as the Eastern time zone, because we are using Washington, D.C.'s time zone, the ascendant, and it happens to be on the 11th house. Justin, did you have anything, or shall we go on?
No, I think she covered that. Let's get started.
Goody. The ascendant, 24 degrees Cancer, ruled by the moon. And we're going from 23 to 26. The past is the meeting of a literary society. And there's a keynote and a keyword for people on podcasts, so we'll kind of ramble on. An objective and critical approach to the common factors in our culture and its psychological problems. Intellectualization. Anyway, that's where we're coming from. So the present, Liz.
At 24 Cancer, a woman and 2 men castaways on a small island in the South Seas. The keynote is the localization of complex inner potentialities in harmonic and concrete relationship. So the key word is interdependence.
And then the 25 degrees is a willful man is overshadowed by a descent of superior power. The keynote is the response of spiritual forces to the integration of personality through positive willful endeavors. So here we see endowment.
Yeah, go ahead with the future one if you want.
Go ahead, Liz.
Cancer 26. Guests are reading in the library of a luxurious home. And the keynote is the transference of social privilege to the level of intellectual enjoyment. The keyword is class standards of information.
Before we go on, because there's a lot of facts and information, and people might be synthesizing it or not, should we just do a quick little story of what this ascendant would be? Because if we're starting from, and I know we do that as a whole over it, but they're intellectualizing, and then they're connecting independently, and maybe you then realizing that the spirituality is important, that they're not just doing it alone. But lead on. Do you have one of you have a quick snapshot that we can leave people? I'd like to do that for each one.
Well, if I may, what I was saying, if we look at this, we see a concept in here of communications and thinking and thought, a literary society, psychological problems, interdependence in harmonic relationships, willful endeavor here, and then of course intellectual enjoyment. So here we're talking a lot about mental concepts and spiritual concepts in relation to, even though this is Cancer, we still see this focus on the air, on the mental aspect of our relationships, and how we objectively or subjectively look at them, and our interdependence of our emotions with each other, and how we share intellect and knowledge.
I like being reminded that this is through Cancer's lens, because we tell stories, and in Cancer, we have a rationale, but the drive might be an emotional one, but they are so related, like air and water. I appreciate it. The midheaven is in fire. It's Aries. It's early. It's 8 degrees. So we're going to go look from 7 to 10. And if you go to the prior one, which in this particular 4-step storytelling, it is a man, it's 7. A man succeeds in expressing himself simultaneously in 2 realms, which is the first realization of the dual nature of mankind, humanity, that is, and the possibility that implies. So it's living 2 separate lives. They're not yet coordinated. Liz, if you do the present 8 degrees, please.
8 Aries, a large woman's hat with streamers blown by an east wind. The keynote is protection and spiritual guidance in the development of consciousness. And the key word is protective forms and sensitivity.
And
Maybe
then the
just a
Sabian
little
9
before.
degrees is a crystal glazer, and the keynote is the development of an inner realization of organic wholeness or concentrated attention. And then as we look to where it's going to, the 10 degrees Aries, a teacher gives new symbolic forms to traditional images. I sometimes think of this almost as somebody doing a new tarot deck. The keynote is revision of attitude at the beginning of a new cycle of experience, meaning we have to change our attitude, and the keyword is abstraction here with this.
Wow. That's just really strong too, because Aries is action, right? Mars, it's driven by Mars, and it wants to achieve and go forward in some realm. And so here there's a big call for action.
Right. And if we look at the midheaven is ultimately what our goals are, what we're trying to accomplish here. I think, one of the things we're trying to accomplish is organic wholeness here with the Sabian 9 degrees and looking at things from a different perspective, possibly. What do you think, Liz?
Well, both these symbols for the ascendant and the midheaven, it's really interesting because, living two separate lives, it reminds me of the duality of Gemini or the twins. It's like, having one foot in maybe the academic world and one foot in something else. And so to me, that duality really, and, being the intelligence, all that really speaks big to me.
Well, we've been reminded we're close to our break, but I so much want to do the sun moon itself, which is the new moon, and then kind of wrap up the whole thing. So with that preface, I think we can do it. So the past is 15 degrees Gemini. It's two Dutch children talking to each other, exchanging their knowledge. And why? The keynote says the need to clarify one's experiences through actual contacts with like-minded individuals. This happens to be my sun sign. And yes, sir and ma'am, that is like, hello, universe. And the key word is objectivity. So Liz, continue on with the present 16 degrees.
16 Gemini, a woman activist in an emotional speech dramatizing her cause. The keynote is a passionate response to a deeply felt new experience. The keyword is proselytizing mind.
And then the Sabian for the 17 degrees Gemini is the head of a robust youth changes into that of a mature thinker. The transformation of physical vitality into the power to build concepts and intellectual formalizations through knowledge that can be transferred. So here we see a mental metamorphosis.
That's the hope. And going ahead with future 18, if we do, it's two Chinese men converse in their native tongue in an American city. And that is the need for the mind to retain independence from physicality in its environment so that it can concentrate on its special problems, insulation. And I thought that reading Dane Ruchar's added focus on this was really, in a sense, it ties back to that ascendant that needs to go within to find that sobering sense of what reality is. And you can't do that if you're constantly being at some big conference or festival or street park or something. Yes? How would you both wrap that up, and then we'll break?
Go, Liz.
Well, to me, it's like maybe like reviewing what you've always believed in, and maybe there's some new things to add, or to like just move off of that solid point of I believe this and there's nothing else. And, it's like kind of getting an update for your mental attitude, so to speak. Justin?
Yeah, the one that Chinese men is really about kind of learning from one's experiences, those Gemini experiences. But this is all about experience and growing and towards a mature thinker. And we grow through exchanging knowledge with one another, like with Sue and with Liz here. And so we mature and we think, and then in that way, when we're able to handle foreign environments or situations that are alien, when we see that 18 degrees.
There is movement in Gemini, and we are working on our relationships just like Nashaka would say. We're going to do a quick break and come right back. So, alakazam, goodbye. Come back. Don't go away. Gemini Moon. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the period of Gemini. By leaving a cycle based on physical form, integrated through spirit, the energy of Gemini connects spirit with matter, focused on communicating and defining the external. Gemini is a mutable air sign signifying flexibility. Gemini dually focuses upon teaching and learning in order to synthesize the world one lives within.
This is Martha Norwalk. Every Sunday morning, beginning at 9 a.m., thanks in part to the Ananda Institute of Living Yoga, we cover the world of animals. This week, June 9th, it's BEST, Neuroenergetic Balancing, Rasmussen Reset, and Energy Code Sunday. Dr. Nels Rasmussen and Sister Linda join us. Together, they can help you or your animal friends with emotional, behavioral, or physical issues. So I hope you can join us. Plan to call in for your free remote treatments. Martha Norwalk's Animal World, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, right here on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Talk Cosmos brings insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for the soul growth with hour-long programs every Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific on KKNW. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel and Facebook page. While you're there, make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons so you get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. And to find out about upcoming programs, sign up for the newsletter at talkcosmos.com. So grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Seattle, Tacoma, Antwerp. That's right. We're streamed worldwide on our app and on the web at 1150kknw.com.
Hi, and we are back again, and we will jump right into, the collective story. There we go. And this is from the ascendant to the midheaven, and I'll just let you both roll.
Go ahead, Justin.
Well, yeah, I think it really speaks again to a mental concepts here. This is, this Gemini season's great for anything we have to do with thinking and communications, any mental work, writing and creativity. And that, it's showing us, I think, with this new moon about this difference between objectivity and subjectivity and how we can use our mind to accomplish those things we want. But ultimately, we're learning to become more mature in our thinking and how we intellectualize these concepts. And we can do that through our creative expression with each other and our relationships.
Relationships, yes, the creativity of it for that mental metamorphosis, because how did we begin to learn as little children? We imitated. You see some of these reels, and I try not to, but sometimes it gets your attention. And there was this little tiny thing that maybe a year old and watching TV and immediately repeating every motion in the dance. I thought it's so instinctive. To me, that showed how we learn through association, through our movement, language, everything. So continue that.
And then I would just add, some people think, well, what does that insulation mean? And I've seen this a lot in clients' charts with that 18 degrees. It's a person that uses their now that mature thinker, right? That mental metamorphosis. And when they get into, let's say, situations outside their comfort zone or in a foreign or alien environment, they're able to rely on that mature thinking and past experiences, that insulation of their past experiences to move forward in life. So I think this is interesting. It shows us why we want to do this is so that we are able to handle, if we're a much more mature thinker, we're much more able to intellectualize and handle new situations that are outside our comfort zone.
Yes, in fact, that's what you read about yogis. Again and again, it said it's not just staying in the cave, it's applying that within the worlds that we live in. Okay. Well, here we again, we'll go through this. We always want to say, what are we doing? Well, Liz can be contacted a Light Path, and Justin at his name, Justin Crockett Elsie, Justin.Elsie, and me, Talk Cosmos. So Liz has her monthly episodes, and they're rolling along since February. She's got 20 of them. Liz, go ahead.
Yes, there's a full moon forecast every month with Justin and myself, then a monthly forecast with Justin and myself, and a new Chiron asteroid series with Justin and myself. And then I have the Astrology Star Sisters Talk Over Tea. And one of the episodes is with Sue and myself for summer solstice, then the Venus Star Point with Marcia Bouchard, Saturn retrograde reality check, and Neptune retrograde revise and re-envision.
Excellent.
So come by and check it out.
Yes. And Justin, you have several of your own.
Yeah, I'm do a monthly Mars forecast, and also we'll be starting a weekly lunar forecast along with an Ask Astrologer series. And I do another podcast with Michael Bartlett, who's an astrologer out of New Mexico, and we do the relationship guys. And so we've had a couple of good episodes already, and so we're getting ready for our third episode.
Yeah, been lots of fun about Megna and Harry, and then Trump.
Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump. We did.
Yes, it was very intriguing.
Yeah.
Very intriguing. It's fun. And I might add that here Justin's going to be joining with Michael Bartlett and John Chinworth on the series that we're doing that's continuing from Chiron with the USA return, because we're in this political drama of new worlds. In fact, today, I just can't keep away from it. The fact that today is that trine, and that it correlates with the same year in 1789. Remember, folks, the war was over, the Revolutionary War, but then the aftermath of trying to get it together to find out what kind of constitution we had. And we came up with our constitution, which is always a work in progress, but it's there. So go on, and I interrupted.
Oh no, that's okay. I love how you bring in the history of that, Sue. That's definitely important.
Yeah.
And then here we have Marie O'Neill has her at least twice a year her workshops, healing workshops, and she invites astrologers to come in and give talks. And this one is called Harmonizing with the Cosmos, and it'll be with myself and David Pond and a couple other folks. Will be in there, and that'll be on June 18th and 19th online.
It is coming up soon. There is a QR code. You can register, and I am being reminded that there has been a replacement with Lori Barnes instead of Catherine Andron. Now, Lori Barnes and Marie O'Neill also have a podcast with Kepler College. So this is quite a dynamic group that
I
Maria
want to put in a boost here for Toastmasters, because Lori Barnes is a fellow Toastmaster there as well with Kepler.
Oh, is she now again? Oh, I've got to get back. I've got to start.
Lori Waters. Lori Waters. Is it
and that's
Lori Barnes or Lori Waters?
No, this is Lori Barnes. I think it's a different Lori. Yeah, you're thinking of Lori Waters. This is Lori Barnes, and she's with Kepler College.
Right.
She lives in Italy, actually. So talk about a world language happening here. And David Pond is right there in the Northwest for you folks that are listening there. He's on and on and on. Okay, we wanted to make this short. I'm sorry. But myself, I have a blog, and I have a new campaign. So get on to Talk Cosmos. You can find these blogs there, of course. And I'll describe that campaign in a moment. And if you want to find myself with Liz, Astrology Star Sisters, I put a playlist on my Talk Cosmos YouTube channel. So there's many ways to go to Rome, right? Many paths. Continue on and on. And we're going to do the summer solstice. So we've been doing it since February, but there's always fun, because every time you collaborate with anybody, there's another side of the picture, a different window you come in, a different door you go out, or open and go through the window, whichever you do. We're Gemini. We're moving along. Here, do sign up with the newsletter and receive your Eclipse Your Path. It's a 10-minute video that I created with East West Books on the solstice. And it's really a sense that endings and beginnings, moving on. But catch it out, however, and join. So let's get back to our show. It is a 16 degrees, 17-minute Gemini new moon. Now, astrocartography is there only because we are moving around the globe and looking at things from that perspective. And that's what astrocartography reminds us. So it's alluding to that idea. Again, as I had said, I'm doing mercurial, bringing in a lot of information and refocusing as we go along. This is the time zones, the location, the ascendant degree changes, of course, because of astronomical facts, and you can learn about that as you might. And the dispositor changes. So how we look at things shifts because of our perspective. That's my point. Essentially, for time zones, I'm going to stick with 3 here. Seattle is going to be in the morning at 5:37 a.m. That's 5:37, 30 seconds. In Washington, D.C., it's 3 hours later, which is 8:37, 30 seconds a.m. And in London, which is the universal time, which regulates the entire globe, is just afternoon. It's 12 o'clock noon, 12:37, 30 seconds. So interestingly, their ascendants change from Seattle with Gemini to Cancer with as a nation. That's why we do DC, and in London with Virgo. So interestingly, Mercury rules both the West Coast and London, but it is a different perspective. I'm going to jump on to the next one. We have a lot of material here, and people can look at this, and we're learning how to present it in bite-sized fashion so that you can hear the story theme and get back to the details if you want. But it does move around the globe. I'm using a porphyry system. That's a quadrant system, not a whole sign system, to show the positions. And generally what we're using is the quadrant and the horizon, because each quadrant is either above the horizon or below. If it's above, it's objective. It's below, it's subjective. Another facet to see things. The ascendant is a factor and it has a dispositor, but the house that it's in that quadrant has a cusp degree and a dispositor. In this particular instance, they all have the same. They're ruled by Taurus, even though the new moon is in Gemini. That might shift for others. So we'll just leave it at that. And I'm not going to go into that detail. But interestingly, how we look at things is quite different. In Hawaii, here, where it's earliest in the morning, it's in the 2nd house of resources. And in Seattle, there, it's in the 12th house of the unconscious and collective. In the East Coast, it's the 4th quadrant again, but and I'm sorry to say that it's my little sign, but it's the 11th house of community. So the West Coast might be thinking, how are we doing this on a collective basis, but unconscious as far as the forces that work with us? It's very spiritual. Remember, it's with the forces that we can't control. Whereas the 11th house is really community, and it's where mankind or humanity is elevated to their best ability. And we do see things more in a networking manner that we have control over. So those aren't necessarily together. And then 2 different ways of looking at the same coin. And the East Coast, not East Coast, thank you, Sue, but Europe with London or Greenwich, it's in the 3rd, it's a 3rd quadrant. It's the 9th house. So they're looking at, what does it all mean? What's the belief systems? It could be more dogmatic, could be religious, could be philosophy, could be law. There's all these factors that get involved in that area of the house. And finally, we can't forget down under the equator with Australia, because we have Alan Clay with Dwarf Planets here with Melissa Billington. But I am participating with Australia on some terms. And there it's also in their 4th house of their fundamental roots, which is curious to see. Unless you have some, go ahead with any comments here, or we can go to the next.
No, move along.
Okay. And let's look at the observations generally, and then we'll go into more specific as far as the astrology. There are out of bounds. The moon goes, I will say, for 10 years, it will be out of bounds. And it will be out of bounds in certain signs. Other signs, it's never out of bounds. But many of the signs, it is out of bounds. And Gemini and Cancer will, next to the solstices, right? Libra, it's never out of bounds. Anyway, that's a whole subject, and pardon me. So right now,
out of bounds for 5 days.
Okay, thank you, because it will go back and forth like a pendulum. Okay, very good. And out of bounds means that at 26 degrees from the equator, that's in latitude, which in astronomical terms is declination. And if it's the sun, that's where it travels. Anything beyond that, that planet, you could say, is in its own domain of its energy. It's not being in relationship to what Hellenistic would say as ruling or guides. But however you look at it, it's a maverick. It's on its own conceptual dimension. And so the moon is quite extreme because it can go to 28. It's at 2712 Gemini. And Vesta is not too much, but it happens to be in Virgo, and that's of hearth and home. But it's also, so we're thinking of both of these in the extreme. And I know I'm going on about this, but contra-parallel is when they're opposite, because if they're in the same above, like north, then they're plus. If it's minus, it's south of the equator. Now, if that degree, and it doesn't have to be exact to the minute, but to the degree is the same plus, that means they're like a conjunction. And that's the importance here. It's an overlay to say, gee, even though they're not in the same signs, they are somewhat thinking the same thing. And if they're opposite, then they're looking at an awareness like, what are they all about? That type of thing. So here we have, but this happens to be exactly at the same degree and minute, which I think is fascinating. And they're opposite. They're looking at each other. Pallas Athena, which is our strategy, our wisdom, which is in Scorpio, is at 2643 declination above, and Dwarf Planet Ceres claiming our nurturing through grief. So there's a lot here to be said, which happens to be in Capricorn, but it's minus 2643. So we're working together in those. If you have any questions, or just that makes
I have a comment. The asteroids are a female energy and the moon is a female energy. And so the asteroid Pallas Athena and Ceres are both out of bounds. So I would say that there's going to be some kind of rise of women, whether it's that they have a cause or they want more power or to be elected. There's something going on with women.
Well, Mexico's about ready to elect its first woman president, by the way. That's part of that.
Awesome.
Ooh, amazing. Well, wait and see. This is something. So the other parallels, I couldn't help but look because I thought, well, if they have parallels, rats. Okay. Is that the sun and moon happen to be in relationship? No, stop and read, Sue. The sun and Venus that just have a Venus Star Point prior to this June 6th event on the 4th, having a Venus Star Point, are at 22 degrees, but Pluto they're looking opposite. That's like opposition with Pluto. And Mercury and Uranus, which have been conjunct, are still in conjunction as far as their declination. It's a bold chart. That means half the chart. So that means it can be kind of extreme in its own way. But according to the definition, that means that you could be feeling like you're missing something. You're on half the side, and what about the other half of the side? So it's a transformative chart with Pluto and Venus trying to find its heart. Going on, we have these aspects, which are also very interesting. I don't know if we're going to make it through it for the first time, but Jupiter and Gemini, it was conjunct, and I just already mentioned about, with Mercury and this Gemini in Jupiter and Gemini is for a whole year. And also, how about Mars Gandhara? And then we'll go on to this.
Yeah, this is a really powerful Mars. I know we just got a couple of minutes here, but I just want to mention how important Mars is because it's in what we call Kadanta, which is a spiritual knot. And so between May 27th and June 5th, this is a really important time to watch how our Mars is acting in the Western tropicals from 20 to 27 degrees. So it's really how we're interacting right now and how we're dealing with our wounds, and because it's conjunct Chiron. And this is really an issue right now. So just kind of be aware that maybe a little bit more sensitive right now. People might be a little bit more sensitive to what's going on.
Thank you. Now, these are the aspects, and we have the chart next. I'll show you the chart. In fact, there's two charts, and we have very little time. And I'm just looking, is there something that we really want to bring out immediately? There's conjunctions with that Venus and the moon, the new moon, Chiron and Hygeia, healing basis. Importantly, I think there's a square and a trine, and that's what the next one brings up. So I'm just going to do that. So we have this stellium. And interestingly, the stellium is divided. I realized that because we have this new moon with Venus, which is having this Venus Star Point, that's in a trine with Pluto in Aquarius. And then we have it's in a square to, somebody help me here.
It's in a square to Saturn.
Thank you. It's in a square to Saturn, which is really trying to formalize and find out through all of this brainstorming or connecting or relationships or forming out of the waters. I'm thinking of
and the new information coming in, it's like that Saturn's going to, I think, help us like, okay, do I need to keep this, or is it time to let that structure go? Do I need to keep that? Is it time to let it go? It's like dissolve the structures that don't work. Justin?
And I totally agree. And that's where we're looking at emotional structures with that. And so it can be a little bit more dynamic with that the emotions and how sensitive people are right now to where this is the way I feel, and they have to get outside of that.
And if you feel like something's missing, you could project it, come to think of it, and say, oh, it's me, whereas actually it's something you just need to let go of emotionally and embrace the new. It's really using that. Thank you.
So the takeaway for the new moon is journal and pay attention to all the messages and be kind to each other.
It is. And I think, though, here we have these other dynamic things happening because, as you can see here, Pluto is really involved and Neptune is involved. You know, they're in a T-square. Pluto's in a T-square and Neptune's in a trine and sextiles. And there's this Thales point that keeps coming back that's relatively new to me. I know that I learned it through Laura Tad and Rick Levine. Laura looked at Rick, who mentioned it. But it is really a growth process. And it's when there is an opposition, a sextile, and a trine. And the fact that it's with Uranus, and that is, and right now as the Vesta is our home. We're working to develop what is the new home of our life and our putting heart to it, putting truth and learning through other people.
Exactly.
Justin, Liz, any comments? I'm so glad to connect. It's next month will be Cancer, and we can maybe take some time to focus on the stories, yes, that we've gathered.
Happy birthday, Sue.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Coming up. And happy Venus Star Point to everybody. Yeah. Bring that heart in with our conversation. Be vulnerable, be real, and sensitive to one another. Thank you.
Thank you for joining an insightful conversation on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests awaken consciousness by connecting soul growth patterns with astrology's energetic cycles. Be sure to tune in next Sunday, 1 p.m. Pacific Time, to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.